it's got to clearly depend on how bad the shot
Yeah.
is, though. Because if you get fouled and knocked unconscious and then you come back,
You're just going to get knocked out.
yeah.
If you get knocked out, that's why boxing, right?
Comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms.
It was like a big part of it is speed. Anthony Joshua has that kind of speed.
Joe Rogan reacted to Jake Paul being hospitalized after the knockout by Anthony Joshua while talking with Daniel Cormier. Rogan said the punch looked extremely powerful and reminded everyone that boxing is very dangerous. He explained that when fighters get hit cleanly at that level, the damage can be serious and last a long time. Rogan also stressed that boxing is unpredictable and that some injuries can stay with fighters for life.
You look like you're out cold.
He was
and then
done.
He outboxed him for the rest of the round.
How? But again, in MMA, fight probably would have been over, and he would have took less damage.
Right, but isn't that a better argument for letting him get up?
Sports doctor Brian Sutterer explained what happened after the knockout in a calm medical way. He said the fight ended mostly how many people expected, but the real worry came when Jake Paul said he thought his jaw was broken. Sutterer said a broken jaw was possible because Anthony Joshua's right hand hit the left side of Jake's face cleanly. However, he explained that a concussion was a bigger concern. He said jaw injuries often matter less at first compared to dangers to the head, neck, or breathing. The hard punch likely twisted Jake's head suddenly, sending force through the brain and raising the risk of a concussion. Even though Jake was not fully knocked out, Sutterer said symptoms could show up later. Jake's shocked reaction showed he knew something serious had happened.
And we got the outcome that we all expected. After the fight, though, Jake told Ariel Helwani that he was worried that he had broke his jaw. He said multiple times he was concerned that he had a fractured jaw. And certainly looking at this knockout punch that Anthony Joshua delivers, it is absolutely a possibility that Jake does in fact have a jaw fracture. I'd honestly be more concerned about a concussion. In fact, with most jaw fractures, the more important thing initially is to look for other injuries to the head, to the neck, to the airway. The jaw fracture potentially being there or not is going to be lower on the list often than whether there's damage to the airway, damage to the head. And so very possible to have a concussion or some residual symptoms from this, as Jake Paul's head is relatively still here. We see AJ comes in with that right, and that sudden, quick, violent rotation of the head is going to transmit a lot of rotational force, not only through the brain, but also through the brainstem, absolutely leading to possibility of a concussion. Thankfully, it didn't completely knock him out, but could absolutely result in some delayed symptoms. But you can see where the punch comes in, landing square on that left side of Paul's face. Jake's reaction was pretty telling too. Right away after it, we could see him going down on the canvas here and being very shocked. It doesn't look like there's any obvious deformity to the jaw. We won't necessarily always see a deformity to the jaw, but you could tell he clearly had realized that something serious had happened there and feeling the full power of AJ's right. And finally, on this last view, we can see a little bit better the exact location where the punch comes in. We'll talk about our jaw anatomy, the different areas of the bones, but your temporomandibular joint, where your jaw articulates with the rest of your skull, is sitting right around in this area, and the jaw is roughly coming down in this orientation. And so where that punch comes in from Joshua is a little bit more kind of flush right in the center of the mandible, but also up close near that temporomandibular joint.
Joe Rogan had predicted before the fight that it would not go well for Jake Paul. He said Jake was used to fighting older or retired opponents, but this time he faced one of the best heavyweights in the world. Rogan warned that the big gap in skill would be dangerous and unforgiving.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
What do you think about Jake Paul, Anthony Joshua?
Boy. Well, realistically, it's one of the craziest propositions of all time. You take a guy who just had a boxing match that looks like a sparring match with a 58-year-old Mike Tyson, and then you're going to fight one of the absolute scariest knockout artists in the heavyweight division. Maybe we should watch the Francis Ngannou fight so you could see. Let's watch that real quick, just so you can see what Anthony Joshua is capable if he's fighting someone that's not in his league. Okay, look, Usyk beat him, and he beat him twice, and Andy Ruiz caught him in the first fight and dropped him and stopped him. It was spectacular.
After Jake Paul stepped into the ring with Anthony Joshua, the boxing world reacted strongly. Some fans praised Jake for being brave and facing a dangerous opponent. But many respected boxing voices strongly disagreed with that praise. Luke Thomas was one of the loudest critics. He said the reaction to the fight was overdone. Thomas explained that people were cheering Jake just for surviving, not for actually competing. He pointed out that Anthony Joshua did not fight at full strength and held back many punches. In Thomas's view, this was not a real competition, but a controlled fight where a top heavyweight showed restraint. He said Jake did not show skill, growth, or smart tactics. Instead, Jake looked overwhelmed, struggled to engage, and showed little real effort to win.
I initially watched the Jake Paul versus Anthony Joshua fight. I think I would say that my conclusions now still match most of what I said when I was watching on the initial broadcast, which is that Joshua, he did look a little rusty to me. I'm sorry, but he did. That Jake is, probably a little bit better than we suggested he might be. When I say we, I mean like the hardcore fight community, the fight fans, the people who work in the industry to a degree. Sometimes there is a suggestion that he can't do anything. And I would be like, well, that's a little much. He can do stuff. I mean, it's limited what he can do. It's very limited what he can do. But there is a little bit too much anger towards him sometimes, or just dismissiveness, maybe is a better way to put that. And I don't really co-sign on some of that. He's got some ability. He's not good. Listen to me very carefully. He's not good. But is he the caricature that he is sometimes made out to be in terms of his pure boxing skill? I think it goes a little overboard sometimes. But that isn't the reason why I wanted to make this video. What I wanted to make this video about is two things. One, after the fight was over, I got on social media and people were like hugely negative about the fight. And I did not think that the fight was good. In fact, I thought the fight was, like most Jake Paul fights, pretty bad, although him surviving kind of feeds into the story of him being perhaps a little bit better than we sometimes think, although I don't really co-sign on that. Let me make the point. The first point is, I think people are overreacting a little bit. A little bit. People were suggesting when I got on social media that this was like the biggest farce they'd ever seen in their life, and that this was, how could he fight like this, and this was a disaster, and Joshua should have got him out there earlier. There is probably some evidence to suggest that I don't think Joshua was carrying him in the sense of, hey, they coordinated this ahead of time. But was Joshua really stepping on the gas? No, I don't think he was really stepping on the gas. There were times I think he clearly pulled his punches.
Lawrence Wacky looked at the fight in a different way but reached a similar critical view. He focused on how dangerous boxing really is. He said one mistake in the ring can end a fight instantly, no matter how famous or prepared someone is. He believed Jake Paul fighting someone like Anthony Joshua was reckless. Wacky stressed that boxing is unforgiving and that mismatched fights are not okay just because they bring attention. He called the fight unnecessary and foolish, noting it could have ended much worse. Despite the strong criticism, some people still gave Jake credit for taking punishment and continuing. After the fight, reports said Jake was taken to the hospital with a serious jaw injury. Some saw this as a sign of toughness and said Jake showed courage by facing a fighter like Joshua. This praise focused more on his toughness than his skill. Even then, few called Jake a real professional boxer. The story became about bravery, not ability. In boxing, taking damage shows heart, but it is not enough. Courage without real competition does not change a fighter's status. Jake's injury showed the real cost of the fight and raised serious questions about whether fights like this should happen at all.
Go to the hospital. I think I broke my jaw. We all know he broke his jaw. We all know we've seen the x-ray. There is a video of the x-ray that he showed us on his Instagram. So that was no AI. And it showed where his jaw had to be reconstructed and, wired, right? So he can't have any hard foods for a while. And again, I think Jake Paul is going to get respect for that, because it's one thing, because we all know about Jake. I think the problem with Jake was he was bullshitting us by giving us fights that we didn't want to see, for one, and for two, wasn't giving us fights most of the time of the people that could beat him. He gave us Tommy Fury, and then Tommy Fury actually beat him, which, whatever. But he did drop Tommy Fury with a left hook, so that was an impressive thing he did against the guy. Can't say the only guy now, because AJ fought him and knocked him out. But, other than that, though, fighting Mike Tyson, Anderson Silva, which Anderson Silva showed that he is still very dangerous and very, very ready at 50 years old. You know what I mean? Like, He did what he did to Tyron Woodley was classic Anderson Silva. You know, he picked his shots. You know what I mean? He moved with grace. He moved with wisdom, and he knew exactly what to do. And again, he should have went over to boxing a long time ago, but Jake beat him. So that just made Jake's, stock rise, right? In the sense of, hey, well, he beat Anderson Silva in the boxing ring.
Adam Catterall was very direct in his opinion. He strongly criticized how popularity now matters more than skill in boxing, and said Jake Paul is a result of that problem. Catterall said Anthony Joshua did not even punch at full power but still caused serious damage. To him, this showed the huge gap between the two fighters. He added that if Joshua had used full force, the result could have been much worse. Catterall also spoke about the direction boxing is going. He said the sport now rewards fame instead of hard work and talent. Fighters who train for years struggle to get noticed, while internet stars get big chances they have not earned in the ring. For Catterall, this fight showed everything wrong with that trend. Jake Paul's presence was not impressive, but proof that attention now matters more than fairness in the sport.
Standing in that ring thinking, for my own credibility, I've got to knock you out, but I've got to try and knock you out where I'm not hurting you as much as what I could if I unleashed. Yeah. And with the punch you said that he landed, it's not his best punch,
it's
his most powerful punch, right? Yep. And he's shattered his jaw in 2 places, right? So Anthony Joshua gets his 70 million, whatever it is. But I think he's sitting there thinking, thank God for that. Thank God. On a human level, I've come out, all right, I've sort of, not reputation, but I haven't hurt him as bad as what I could have.
There should be an awful amount of people breathing a massive sigh of relief. Anybody that put that fight together, athletic commissions, like you said.
It wasn't a fight.
No, it wasn't at all. Like you said, it was a prize fight. It was an event. If Anthony damages him, he's got to live with that for the rest of his life.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of stress to deal with, you know what I mean? So I'm sure he's bleeding in the side of relief. The team that have put him in there, that have negotiated that for him, but the authorities that put that on and commissioned it as a proper boxing match, I've no doubt.
Does that go on his...
Yeah, it's a professional boxing
Do you know what? If I was Anthony Joshua, I would be saying, I don't want that on my record. But for the credibility of them putting the fight on, they would have said to him, no, we've got to say this. It's been commissioned. It's going to be a proper fight. And I found it, I love my boxing, but I just find the whole thing really, really unedifying. You said about get followers. You mentioned Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury is nowhere near his level of getting like a British title fight or whatever. Nowhere near. So it's basically he's like...
Beat Jake Paul.
Well, oh yeah, sorry, yeah, beat Jake Paul. But so
but what I'm saying is that's 100. I stand by that, and I think Tommy would admit that. You know what I mean? To become a British champion is a very prestigious thing to do, and I think he would struggle to do that.
But I think when I was reading, he got 5.6 or £6 million.
True Geordie gave a more balanced but still critical reaction. He said Jake Paul's personal journey and rise in entertainment were interesting and motivating on a human level. But when it came to the fight, he felt Jake did not deliver. He said Jake did not look like he truly wanted to win. His movement was unsure, his attacks lacked effort, and he seemed focused on surviving, not competing. True Geordie stressed that boxing is judged by what happens in the ring, not by stories or intentions. While Jake's journey may inspire some people, the fight itself had no real sporting value. The broken jaw became a sign not of bravery, but of what happens when big skill gaps are ignored.
Really hard fight for me to evaluate because on the one hand, Jake's come a long way, so you want to give him credit for that. But on the other hand, you want to get in there with AJ. You want to talk about you're going to beat AJ up and then you fight in a certain way. It's very hard for me to kind of give the right amount of credit and criticism here because the backstory is so inspiring, but the performance was not inspiring in some ways. I think for me now, I just want to see Jake Paul in a fucking competitive fight. And that's the problem with the direction he's been going in is he puts on big fights, but not competitive fights. Fighting Chavez Jr., that was an easy win. Nate Diaz, an easy win. Mike Tyson, an easy win. Anthony Joshua, not competitive for the opposite reason. He's completely not expected to win, and it wasn't competitive. He stacks the chips too heavily either way, and because of that, we never actually get to find out how good Jake is. And part of that, I think, is maybe deliberate, because then we never know, and the storyline can go anywhere. And while you don't know really how good he is, there's always another dream to sell, and it's almost genius level promoting. It really is. But for his own sake, you're getting into your late 20s now, your physical prime, you're only going to ever find out how good you really are by getting in there with people who are of the level that you claim you're at the right weight class. You are not a cruiserweight. You've got a layer of, body fat on you. You can't be doing that in boxing. If you're a serious boxer, you don't get in there looking like Jake Paul looks. You look shredded. And that's why really he's a light heavyweight. But like, fuck it. If you want to be cruiserweight, be a cruiserweight. Regardless, just fight people who are now like ranked. And let's find out where the fuck he is. Because surely, these money grab Tyson fight, the AJ fight, he's packed that bank chock full. And credit to him. Even if he has hustled people or whatever the fuck, credit to him. One of the best promoters in boxing history, actually. I really do believe that. Because even when fights seem ridiculous, he always gets people to tune in.
Paulie Malignaggi was one of the toughest critics. As a former world champion, he has very high standards for boxing. He completely dismissed the fight, calling it unserious and not competitive. Malignaggi said Jake Paul did not try to win and only aimed to last as long as he could. He criticized Jake for dropping to one knee many times and treating the fight like a show instead of a real contest. Malignaggi said his anger came from respect for the sport. He explained that real boxing careers are built on sacrifice, discipline, and years of hard work. Seeing someone get attention just for surviving without earning it the same way felt insulting to true fighters. In his view, the fight did nothing to help boxing in a meaningful way.
He earned the respect of boxing fans by going out on his shield. The guy just ran for his life. I just watched Jake Paul run for his life for like 5-6 rounds. Literally just run for. He was doing football jukes. You guys watched that fight? Ring was big. I made a freaking point about that ring being big, and he used it to his advantage in terms of survival in every way he could. I mean, this guy literally never tried to win a second of the fight. He was trying to throw a home run punch every once in a while. Then notice every time he got in the clinch, he just went down. Like he just hugged Anthony Joshua and then like would go down, and the referee would call it a slip and give him a break, and like he would just kill time that way. Then he was completely angling off. He's completely blading his shoulder off completely to the point where he's so bladed off that he can't even punch. He was just trying to make himself as small of a target as possible. And Anthony Joshua, people are going to say, oh, why didn't Anthony Joshua catch up to him? Because Anthony Joshua never had fast feet to begin with. And Anthony Joshua, honestly, should have probably cut off the ring a little bit better. That's my one critique of Joshua. He probably could have cut off the ring a little bit better. Joshua's always never really had the best feet, but in terms of cutting off the ring, could have at least done that. But honestly, what do you want the guy to do? I mean, this guy ran for his life in a 22 by 22 foot ring. That ring was huge. That ring was huge. I can't believe what I just watched, guys. I'm seriously, like, dude, that's it. That's it. This was AJ's chance. Could have went out on his shield and his chance to say, yeah, get the respect of the boxing community. This was the one that could have got him the respect of the boxing community. This was the one. He came out with all this rap crap and doing the Hulkamania crap and all that other stuff and all that stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, is he that calm, or is he literally just setting up his own demise? I mean, I don't know. AJ came out to the ring really serious, which would you expect? And then, I mean, he never fought. Jake never fought. Like, he never fought the whole fight. And then in the end, what happened? You get stopped anyway. You took some shots anyway. His mouth was bleeding at the end of the fight. So you took shots anyway.
That's all for today's video. Stay tuned and see you next time.